everybody, it's beer and blades time again. Now today's beer could be a massive triumph, or it could be an atrocity, because I found Cherry Head Cherry Stout by Marston's. Now, big fan of stout, and I do like fruit beer, but I've not seen a fruit stout before. It's usually a paler beer when you get a fruit beer. So let's see what we've got. You can certainly smell the cherries. 4.5% by volume. This sweet cherry stout is bottled Black Forest decadence at its best. But be warned, it'll drag you into the woods and back out again. Not entirely sure what that's supposed to mean. Marketing bollocks. So, dark stout colour, very gentle touch of red to it. Strong scent of cherries, or cherryade I should say. I think they've just about got away with that. It's you can smell the cherries when you raise the glass to your face. The start of the flavour though is all just stout, and as the beer flavour subsides you get this very sharp cherry flavour, and that outlasts the beer flavour, but it's not too overpowering. It's well balanced with the proper beer flavours. Yeah, I think that's alright. Marston's Cherry Head Cherry Stout. Wow. Next part of the video is just me sitting here talking for a bit. I'm going to respond to an open tag from Pete around the other side of the world. Cedric Ada Outdoors is his channel. Cedric and Ada being his dogs. And he did a video of 5 unpopular opinions about knives. And I thought I'd stick my oar in and offer 5 points of view, see what people think. The first one is about blade steel. And part of the reason for picking up on the tag is that I wanted to pick up on one of his unpopular opinions. And he was saying that, generally speaking, for most people you don't need a high performance steel on your pocket knife. For most people just an ordinary basic softer steel would do, and I agree with that. In fact, I would go a bit further. I would go as far as what Chad says, the fat man, in that for most people on your pocket knife the steel doesn't matter at all. Anything will be alright as long as the heat treat's okay and it's not all bendy. For most people it doesn't matter. Now, if you're using your knife all day as part of your job, clearly you're not the kind of person I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about people who carry a pocket knife because it might come in handy at some point during the day. But one thing Pete said was that if you're not very good at sharpening your knives, it might be worth, in that situation, having a harder steel, because it's not going to need sharpening so often. But I think that's the wrong way around, you see, because I think if you can't sharpen a soft steel like a Swiss Army knife blade, then if you decide to get a harder steel, it's still going to get blunt eventually, and then when it needs sharpening you're fucked. So you're far better off, I think, going for a basic steel and learning to sharpen it. Then if you want to get a harder steel with better edge retention, you're in a better position to cope with it. But for most people, unpopular knife opinion number one is that the blade steel doesn't really matter. Number two on my list over there, knives are rubbish for self-defence. Now, some people are going to be trained to defend themselves using knives. Certain of the martial arts, certain of the armed forces will use knives, but for most people who have no training, not only are knives useless for self-defence, they're stupid. And you do see a lot of people talking about carrying knives for self-defence on the knife channels, and also in the newspapers where you get gangs of young kids who feel the need to carry a knife. And the problem is, if you don't know how to use a knife and you get attacked, in the mad panic you are probably going to kill somebody without intending to. It's a bit of an all or nothing weapon in the hands of the unskilled. Sometimes using a knife for self-defence is a good idea. An example, a couple of years ago, not too far from here, 4 fellas broke into somebody's house. I think they broke in through the kitchen. They were armed. The householder grabbed a kitchen knife, stabbed at least 2 of them. I think 2 fled uninjured. And of the 2 that he stabbed, 1 of them died. He had to go to trial, as he killed somebody, but quite sensibly he was found not guilty of murder, because in those circumstances stabbing somebody with a large kitchen knife was deemed to be a reasonable act of self-defence, because there were 4 of them and they kicked his kitchen door in. But in other situations, if you're out and about, you might think a knife would even the odds a bit if you're attacked by multiple people. But the problem with that is, if there's 4 of them and 1 of you, and you simply get overwhelmed by the numbers, once you hit the floor, 1 of them 4 is going to stab you with your own knife. So, and the other thing, of course, is that if you do try and defend yourself with a knife and stab somebody, you're almost certainly going to get caught, because there'll be so much DNA everywhere, and in most urban areas, it's a pretty high chance of being seen on CCTV, so not a good idea. Opinion number 3, probably an unpopular opinion, number 3. Most kinds of Damascus steel are horrible. They look dirty and scruffy. There are some Damascus patterns that are quite stunning, but generally speaking, it doesn't add anything to the attractiveness of a knife. Unpopular knife opinion number 4. Bales on knives. That's old Dutch army knife. Bales, that little pivoted bar you hang your knife from. Daft idea for one very simple reason. Goes all the way over like that. Your blade comes down and you've got a nick in your blade. So, they are useful, I suppose, but they do have that possibility of damaging your blade if you're not careful, so I think bales are daft. And then unpopular opinion number 5, and this one's most likely to be the most unpopular amongst the knife communities. I carry a pocket knife every day. Carry a little tiny one at work, carry a larger one when I'm not in work. But I would venture to suggest for most people, you don't need to carry a knife at all. You're always somewhere where there'll be a knife or a pair of scissors that's not too far away. You can just get off your bottom and fetch it. I do like carrying a knife, and it does come in handy from time to time, but based on the amount of times I actually need to use my pocket knife, I'm going to suggest that most people don't need to carry a knife at all. Now, on that heretical note, we'll get to the main part of the video, which is a close-up look a lovely knife that was sent to me by my good friend Chad, the fat man. The Benchmade Proper. Okay, so this is how the knife comes in the Benchmade blue box. Some details on the label there. Proper 319, CPM S30V, slip joint, blue class. We open the box. Literature explaining the gold class bridges the gap between custom and manufactured knives. Blue class is the heart of Benchmade, for those who really appreciate the difference a high performance cutting tool can make. And then black class is the extreme knives for military, law enforcement, etc. So it comes in a silky sack. And here we have it. So, what have we got? Single blade slip joint, steel springs, steel liners. The handle scale is, I would say, canvas micarta. Let's just see if it says anything on the box. No, it doesn't say on there, but I think we can be fairly sure that's a canvas micarta. Torx screw construction, lanyard hole, single nail nick. Half stops. Now we like half stops. Half stops are good. And a good strong click into position. Got a little bit of jimping on the end of the spring and the end of the blade there. Lovely sort of modified sheep's foot shape, perhaps. Benchmade butterfly. It's a satin finish, swedged for most of the length. We've got the high sabre grind with a terminal bevel, and a little sharpening notch. It's good fit in my hand. I've got medium sized hands, so this is a nice size knife. Let's have a look at some specs. Check the focus. So the blade is a shade under 3 inches long, tip to bolster. It's about 75mm. Cutting edge is about 2 3/4 of an inch. Handle 3 3/4, about 95mm. And the blade stock, I would say, is 2.5mm thick. So, fairly simple knife, well made. Blade centering is very, very slightly to one side, and we're not perfectly flush just along the back spring there, but overall the fit and finish is good enough. This is an expensive knife over here. I think it costs about £80 or £90, so for that sort of money you may want to see proper complete flush fit along the back there, but it doesn't bother me too much. Let's see what the knife weighs. Can we see that on camera? 61.6 grams. Or in English, just coming up to 2¼ ounces. We've got no blade plate at all in either direction, up or down or side to side. Now this isn't the factory edge. I've been using this and I have sharpened the edge up a little bit, but we'll just show you this S30V takes a very good edge. Very nice indeed. Ooh. When I'm not being clumsy with it. Because this is quite a chunky knife, it's very good for chocolate cardboard boxes, and it is sharp. I'll just show you got no problems at all with the cardboard. A lovely, lovely knife. There isn't a massive amount really to say about this. It's a nice design. It's well made. Fit and finish is good. Fits nicely in the hand. The ergonomics are nice. Got a little bit of jimp in there. Possibly may have been an idea to continue it up to the start of the swedge, because when I hold it my thumb sits a little bit forward of the rear part of the jimping, but it's nice. A nice satin finish on the blade. You're not going to be too bothered about scratching it up or losing your mirror polish. Overall, a very nicely made UK legal slip joint. So, I think to finish off, as we usually do, we'll have a look at some close-ups and you can see what you think.